Greetings and welcome to the Five Stones podcast.
Hey, that's good coffee.
It's super.
It's super.
We are drinking hazelnut coffee prepared to you from the Hedegaard bunker.
The Hedegaard bunker.
2/3 of us are drinking hazelnut coffee. One of us kept our morals.
One of us had no other coffee. How's that hazelnut looking now?
There's hot cocoa in there if you'd like to have that.
I could just heat up some water. There you go.
And for the record, I'm smoking a La Gloria Cubana Digger today with a D.
I'm still back doing the New World.
I am as well.
This weekend I had a couple JFRs.
Yep.
And I really like the JFR cigar. I may go try a box of that after this one's done.
Yep, I'm back to New World for a while. I kind of bounced around for a couple weeks.
If you ever need a cigar that will last you 6 hours, this is the one.
9 holes of golf.
At least that.
Yeah. So the question come up, we had a situation rise yesterday about a story of a young lady that was working for a brokerage, and the question that came up that we always talk about is legal versus ethical, and you can throw morals in there as well. And I talk about this when we teach the ethics class, that it's possible to be legal and unethical, and there are potentially things that are ethical that are not legal.
Yep. People
ask that all the time. The best example for that one, get it out of the way, is, say, medical marijuana. You know, it supposedly does have medical purposes, but yet here in Indiana it's illegal, so we refrain from administering that drug to certain people that may get a benefit of it because it's illegal. So is it immoral to withhold a drug that could cease pain because it's illegal? So there's an example of something that is ethically should be allowed, but it's illegal. And then you get a lot of things that are illegal or that are legal, but maybe not ethical or moral. And the question yesterday was the girl believed that her boss took over the client and didn't pay her. That was not ethical of the boss to do that, while it was legal because it was his company.
So all the clients belong to the managing broker, theoretically, or
Legally.
Legally.
Yeah. They are all my clients, my commission, my closings, my listings, my buyer's agents under the eyes of the Indiana Real Estate Commission. And when I teach the class, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, well, I got to give the broker half my money. No, it's actually the broker's giving you half of his money to represent him. And this was a case of where she thought she should have got more because she did all the work. And unfortunately, the law would come down on the side of the broker that it's actually his listing and his commission. And if he decided that he was going to keep a portion bigger because that girl didn't do the job correctly, legally, I think he was right.
Yeah.
You know, morally.
So he swooped in and saved the deal, and she made something. So the one side of the story is you made something, so be happy.
Yeah. The other side of the story is she got 30% of something as a referral for a deal he finished, as opposed to 100% of zero.
Yep.
Which is what was going to happen because the client was going to walk from the company because they did not see eye to eye with that particular agent and said, I want out, I want a mutual release. And the managing broker came in and saved the deal and finished up the deal, which I have done several times in my career, and then just paid the agent a smaller referral than what would have been her normal split. And that's why she was upset.
So as a manager, you have some. I'm going to just play the opposite side just for fun. You have some duty to support your employees and train them, and sometimes we do have to swoop in and protect them or save a deal or do something like that. So part of it is a managerial duty.
Yeah, no, I agree what he did. So let me ask you a question. If your responsibility, you bring on a new agent, either in an MLO in the real estate world, I know coming in when I take that agent, I am going to have to help them, and I agree to some sort of split. Mm-hmm. Is it right for me to then actually do what I told her I was going to do and help her, and then change the split on that because I helped her too much or I helped her more?
Yeah, that's the gray area.
Well,
that's what the argument is.
I don't think it's a gray area, and there's not a lot of times where I get a burr in my saddle about something, but
this one's it.
This one really fires me up because here's the reality. This agent was more or less fired by their client. They did not want them at all dealing with any of it whatsoever. It was from the very beginning, it's the managing broker's client anyway. I don't think they owed her anything, to be quite honest. They didn't even have to give her the 30%. I feel like they were generous in giving any amount of money, considering that the ball was completely fumbled and someone else had to pick it up and score the touchdown.
But he hired her knowing he was going to pick up a fumble.
I agree with that to an extent, but if it was picking up a fumble and she was still doing the work, if he had smoothed it over and she was still doing the work of getting this across the goal line, and she was still involved, absolutely 100% it should stay the way it was. But she was completely removed from the situation. If I trade a player off of my football team and we win a championship,
no,
shouldn't get
that's
something.
A different story. The player's no longer on your team.
No, the player is no longer
still part of the company.
I think if you've been at a company for 6 years and this happens to you, that's a little different than if you're maybe in your first year and in a training situation. I will say, perhaps the managing broker should have said, "I'll bail you out, but I'm going to keep 70% of the thing."
So that's where I think the unethical part might have come in. He should have explained to her better. Now we're taking her at a face value that he didn't explain that. Right. So if that's the case, then he should have explained better. But I know coming in that if I have to pick up the fumble, it could be anywhere from just picking the ball up and handing it back to that person to actually finishing that play. And I see that as my managerial job anywhere in that realm. And I knew that bringing in, to finish Joe's analogy, a first-year rookie, I knew that I had to watch them. And, hey, this play went great. I didn't do anything. This play went great. This play went horribly wrong. Mm-hmm. And now I've got to come in and save the day. So.
And are you on the 20-yard line on your side of the field or on the,
Well, I guess that's another question. How much more did he do on the deal? Did he completely have to relist with new pictures and get new open houses and go through the whole 80 yards? Or was it a matter of they were finishing the negotiation on the purchase agreement, and once that was done, they were done?
Right.
So, yes, that could play into it as well, as to what percentage. And I think that's what Joe was kind of saying. Was she involved up until the goal line stand?
Did he just take the ball?
Or did she drop it way back at the kickoff?
A lot of questions. That's how I would build a case.
Can you tell football starting this weekend?
Yeah.
Or next weekend?
Well, I also think that we have to put into it aptitude. Like you mentioned, when you hire a rookie.
But she's already closed 3 or 4.
That's exactly my point. My point is you do expect that when it's a rookie. And I guess we don't know how that quote player sold themselves to wanting to be on that team.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's if you bring in someone that has 10 years experience, you expect less, you expect fewer fumbles than you do that rookie. And when you bring in someone with 10 years experience and you have to treat them like a rookie, I think there's a lot baked into it.
Well, I don't think she had 10 years experience.
There could be more.
I know for a fact
There's
she
almost
doesn't.
always more to the story, and as a manager,
Yeah.
person, there could be a situation where perhaps they want to exert pressure for her to find another brokerage.
And I think what put the
I mean,
bird.
I'm-
Well, that could be true. But back to Joe's. We've got a big hitter in our
Yep,
group. He still calls.
I know.
So I meant
True.
that is kind of why, as the managing broker with 23 years of experience, that you still help somebody with 10 years experience, because
Absolutely.
in this business, you could go 6 or 7 years, the market changes, and now strategies change, and that person has no idea. Now, I don't think that's the case in this situation.
But I also think that person with 10 years experience, if they see a deal going south and the managing broker steps in to help them save part of it, they're actually leaping for joy that they make any money off of something because they've seen enough to know that they weren't going to get squat.
That might be correct, but I go back to the fact is she doesn't have this young
I
lady
know.
didn't have 10 years.
My frustration is when the first words out of someone's mouth are, they did this to me, they did this to me, they did this to me.
That's a good point as a manager. Is that something you guys look for? I mean, you were in a different world. You're in the different world. When a new prospective employee comes in and starts out by bad mouthing
The last boss.
or the current boss.
Within the first 30 seconds,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a difference. If I'm and I've interviewed a lot of people. If in the first, 45 minutes into it, and I ask them, so really, what's the reason that you're leaving? And I draw it out of them. That's fine. I'm drawing it out of them. If it's, hi, how are you? I'm Bob. Well, I'm Cindy. And then within 20 seconds, Cindy is immediately eviscerating where they are. To me, that's red flag.
Well, we often have clients that have had 3 or 4 jobs in 2 years, and you start to ask yourself, okay, and then you work with them, and they're difficult,
and we know why.
And you start to put it together, like, oh, wait a minute, this story starts to make sense.
We all three know a guy that I'm talking about that has probably had 10 jobs in the last 3 years, and every time it's always like Joe said. Every time he gets fired, it's because they did this to him. They changed my work hours. They didn't give me the right tools to do this. They didn't do that. And what was the running joke? And since we're on a podcast, we can actually do it as opposed to the radio. I told him, I said, dude, if you meet an asshole during the day, that guy's an asshole. But if everybody you meet's an asshole, I'm betting it's you that's the asshole. So when he was fired 10 times in 2 years, I'm guessing it's not the employers.
Almost like me blaming McDonald's for being fat.
I want to sue you.
I want to sue you for eating too much.
Damn you, you make it taste too good.
Yeah.
The coffee was hot.
Yeah. That hot coffee was hot.
With the hot warning label on the lid.
Yeah, apparently we found out, what was it, $30 million is the cost of 80-year-old genitals?
Yeah. That probably wasn't being used anyway. I'm just saying.
Used cars go down in value. How did that go up?
Yeah.
Sorry. And I digress.
So that transaction it's situational, right? Is that the final answer? That it depends on how new the employee is, depends on the situation, depends on the manager's activity level during the deal, depends on a lot of factors.
I will still go back to
He wasn't wrong.
Exactly.
And it wasn't illegal.
No, and that was the assertion. The assertion was, he did wrong, he did illegal, what should I do?
Yeah.
And that is not the case. Now, maybe he should have explained more. And maybe he did, and it didn't sink in.
Yeah.
These are things we won't know. But as far as it comes down to being legal and ethical, everything that was done was legal and ethical.
Legal.
It was legal.
I still think it was ethical. She
I
knew what he
don't
was
think
doing.
it was ethical.
You don't think it was ethical for him to save a deal that was going
No,
to...
well, you and I have a big disparity on the whole football analogy.
Yeah, we do a little bit.
I would say I
Yeah.
would do the whole deal
And
still
still
give her the split that we agreed
And
on.
I'm not saying that I
Because
wouldn't
I
either.
knew going in that she was a new agent, and I took that as a risk for me, and that is my job. So I think to give her the original split would have been the ethical thing to do,
At some
at
point,
least the
well-
first time. But here we go. We keep putting.
But I mean, I view it as a moral thing. I think morally, absolutely. I think we both would do that for someone. We'd do that for anyone in the
So
current
what's the
brokerage.
difference between morals and ethics?
Well, there is a difference between morals and ethics.
well, what I was going to say is this is the reason that there is a hierarchy and there is a manager, and that person has shown at some point a level of discernment to move up to that level. So don't we kind of have to trust their judgment that there might have been more to the story and
Yeah,
it was justified?
except I know that manager.
Well, I guess
Touche.
that's one of if you know everybody in the industry, you know
Yeah.
all the peccadillos.
Well, the problem is that particular manager is only about 5 years
Into it.
into it himself. Maybe 6 or 7 because I'm old and I lose track of time. But I remember that manager going through real university.
Well, it's a little bit slower market for many, so maybe it's just one of those things where who
Well,
knows? There's more to the story.
unfortunately, what I think I'm guessing in my head is exactly what you said. It's a slower market. Did that manager see an opportunity for him to get more money by taking it from her?
Well, it obviously didn't seem justified to her, so she's out
Yeah.
looking for another place. So.
So what's the difference between moral and ethics? Ethics are a codified set of rules, where morals are how you apply those rules in your life,
Yes,
to me.
and I agree.
Like, do not steal. That's a law. There are plenty of people that still steal because their morals don't line up with the ethics. And yet there are other people that will not steal because their morals say that that ethics rule is a superior rule, so they live by that, and that's how they adapt that ethics. That's the way I've always looked at it. Morals were, my dad once told me that morals are what you do when no one's looking.
Yeah, well, I guess ethics are kind of an understood guideline of sorts.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in this case, the morality is what would separate you in the way that you would handle it from some of the others, because you have no problem with communication and overly communicating to the point that people understand what is going on. And I think that is the moral aspect that was probably skipped. It was not explained far enough in detail that the person could understand everything that was going on, because clearly the person didn't understand or they wouldn't have been asking you. So point being, that is where the moral aspect comes into it. You have a moral, I feel like we have a moral duty, because that's how we are, to not just do it ethically, but explain the ethics to them, and that's how the morality fits into what we're doing, so that they don't get into that position again.
Well, I'm going to disagree with
And you can.
I don't think you can teach morals.
No, but I think a moral person teaches. That is the point that I'm making. I'm not saying you're going
What's
to
the
teach
old?
morality.
What's the
to them.
adage that Ron is always saying in our Bible study? I'd rather see a good sermon than hear a good sermon, and I think that statement is actually the underlying difference.
Yes.
People can talk about ethics, but do they act that way? That's their morals.
Yes.
So I would believe that a moral person follows ethics rules. There are people that follow ethics rules, I think, out of fear. My wife would be a good example. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that, and I've got myself in a hole. I hope you're not watching this. I don't think that the fear of being arrested for stealing is a great fear for her.
No.
But I mean, I know she has high morals too, so I'm not saying that she wouldn't do that. And maybe that's a bad example, but where somebody would follow the ethics rules because they don't want to be in trouble, not
because of their moral fortitude.
Yeah, not because of their moral fortitude.
I think they can be learned from the aspect of a kid will go and steal a cookie when mom's not looking, and then he gets caught stealing a cookie, and then he doesn't steal the rest of his life.
Well, I mean, let's roll it back.
Well, that was the ass whooping that went with the.
Well,
we talk about this in Bible study. Does the tree bear fruit? A lot. Okay.
Yeah, you can tell a Christian by the fruit they bear.
So I guess my point where the morality would fit into this is you, I, Collin, because I know I can speak for the three of us, would continue because of our morality to explain and show and try to get them to understand why it is going that direction. Ethically, they don't have to bring in the morality of explaining that and making sure that they understand that so that they're comfortable with everything.
Yeah.
Ethically, they can just do what they did. But the extra step of morality involved in this, we're making sure that she understood, would have solved 90% of the headache. Well, just by taking that extra step.
There's more to the story, because perhaps he just helped two other of her clients that were about to leave, and this is the third one. And he finally had. We don't.
Again, we talk about this all the time. We hear one story over here and one story over here, and rarely are both of those correct. It's generally somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, I can argue both sides of it. I think if you take.
Oh, you are an attorney.
Well, if you take on an employee that isn't trained well enough to close all their deals, then
you better be prepared.
Be prepared to help them, and they're going to expect to get paid normal because part of the deal and the split is the help.
Yeah.
But
and then however the employee had better be explaining that they are young and don't understand it, and not puff themselves to the point that they feel like they're getting a killer and they're getting.
Well, there's also a lot of ways to make a case. You can say, I deserve more. Or you can say, look, you hired me 4 months ago, and this is my third deal, and I need some training on this. I appreciate you helping me, but,
Yeah.
You could build a case two different ways. So
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you for joining us, and as usual, push the subscribe and the like button so that you get new stuff as it comes out.
Yeah.
See you later.
Harumph.